is Jack. And, well, I'm back from somewhat of a hiatus. I have just gone through surgery. Got 11 screws and 3 plates in my ankle. After I slipped on some ice last Friday, and I broke it in 3 places and then dislocated it for good measure. That was a long day in the emergency room. But yesterday was the surgery. Anyway, I'm back now, and I am feeling a little bit better. You know, it hurts, but it is what it is. Anyway, I was turned on to this story by the author themselves, Sunny. SweetSunnyBuns. I just call them Sunny. I was actually there at kind of the conception of this idea, just when they were talking about it to begin with, and it was quite something to hear. And I thought it was a really cool concept, a really great explanation for Sunset Shimmer in general, whether it's in this Shimmerverse or in the canon. This is an author that I know to be a little timid about writing some of the harder stuff, but a very good writer nonetheless. I'm going to want to read this. I'm going to just read chapter 1 for tonight. This is called Soul Sisters, of a fan fiction called The Birth of a Magical Unicorn, which, as the title implies, is about the birth of Sunset Shimmer. So, I'm going to read the author's note here. Warning: abuse and abuse of violence in the following chapter, as well as death and loss. It's not all grief and sadness, though. Read on. Oh, I will read on. And for those who aren't accustomed to my style, while I will be reading the story or the chapter in full, I do tend to have a lot of asides. It can be anything from constructive criticism to just outright criticism. I've done this with the author there, with Scroll, in another story. I haven't finished it. I do have to continue with that series, but I like to vocalize my thoughts, and they're not always negative. Like when I have Scroll there, I'll actually ask questions and get, the author himself to be able to explain it. He has every opportunity to stand up for himself, and anybody else would too. The comment section, to me, that's what the comment section's for, is to voice your thoughts or your disagreements. If you don't like what I have to say, and you don't have to, then you have every opportunity to voice that. So, anyway, the little life started joyfully down its path, eagerly awaiting the moment it would be joined and ensouled. Timeless while soulless, it drifted down the tube towards what it knew would become its cradle of life, the place where once ensouled it would grow and thrive. Uncounted time passed, then a moment came where she was swarmed by those who would join with her. One of them, stronger and faster than the rest, found and breached her. Sensing his presence, she closed herself off from any other, leading him to her. On his arrival, she poured herself out to him, and the two joining into one essence and one being. Immediately, she was aware of a profound shift in her perception. She sensed a moment. She sensed time. She was aware and delighted in her awareness. She was different now, a soul, a conscious, living being. As she continued her journey to the cradle, she began her growth, dividing again and again until she was no longer a single egg, but a mass of many cells, all yearning to grow, to develop, and to eventually be born. As she continued down her path to the living cradle, a sudden and intense jolt shook her to her core. Half of her cells broke away, continuing down the same path. Panic filled her. What would she do? Half of her had left. It was without her soul. What was going to happen to them? A gentle light filled her being as her soul was twained. From one there were now two. Delighted in being together, her new sister's soul rushed off, diving into the parted cells and ensouling them, bringing them to consciousness. Together, the new sister souls drifted down into the cradle. settling into the separate places as they nestled into the cradle's life-giving essence. With the passage of time, they grew, every moment delighting in each other's presence. Eventually, they developed to the point they could not reach out, delighting in bumping and poking one another. Serenity Sunrise Parker, what a cool name. I just love that name. Was not a happy young woman. She had missed her period, so she had gone to the clinic and had them run the test. She was pregnant, so now she had a difficult conversation ahead with her very much adverse to commitment boyfriend. She was fairly sure she knew how he would react, and knew he had an aggressive mean streak if he felt trapped or threatened. She had lived through a rather uneventful but fairly happy childhood. Her biggest contention growing up had been her name. Her parents had nicknamed her Sari growing up, leading to the children at school calling her Miss Serious. Of course, she absolutely hated it, so she told everyone that her real name was Sunny. That name stuck. That's what friends called her, though she never did manage to get her family on board. To this day, they continued to call her Sari, but all had faded away behind her. She had a bigger and more life-altering event before her than changing her nickname. The counselor at the clinic had reminded her she always had a choice. One word from her that could make this event go away. She wouldn't even have to face her angry boyfriend. She didn't require even a second thought. She knew her heart, even though this event wasn't planned, she loved this little life within her. She couldn't imagine losing it, no matter how angry her boyfriend might get, or how much this changed her life. Her no to the counselor's suggestion was as emphatic as it was sudden. So she leaned against the pole alone with her thoughts, waiting for her boyfriend to share her news. Oh, heavy as it is, well done. It sets a very real tone of dread for Sunny, knowing the type of person that her boyfriend is, probably herself feeling trapped in a way, and knowing, just dreading what that moment will be like to deliver that news, that conversation. Tom was not happy. His work had sucked. His boss caught him slacking on the job, then chewed him a new one on the shop floor for several minutes, to the entertainment of the rest of the floor, all laughing and snickering at his misfortune. They were all assholes, and they knew it. They all blew off their work too, but he was the one who got caught. The realization that they may have been laughing because he was the only one stupid enough to get caught left him even more angry. Screw them all. And then that thought brought a smile to his face. And that's 4 paragraphs, just 4. And they do such a great job of illustrating what a low-life narcissist this fellow is. He isn't interested in taking responsibility for his actions, but in blaming others for the way that they react and the way that they treat him. As though they're legitimately just taking joy, but they probably are. If he is the way that he is in his love life, then he is unlikely to be that any other way in any other part of his life. And so he likely hasn't earned himself very many real friends. Anyway, a bit over 2 months ago, his cute little redhead girlfriend had finally relented to his advances. He'd experienced something more fun than anything else he could remember. He'd experienced it again a few times since then, and the idea of experiencing it again tonight seemed the perfect way to get his mind off his asshole coworkers and his embarrassment at work. Screw them. Screw her. He laughed. He laughed, finally really looking forward to this evening. He drove his pickup to the parking lot of her apartments and parked. He found her lost in thought, leaning up against one of the parking lot lampposts. As he sauntered over towards her, he tried very hard to look cool. Okay. I have to say, there was I personally did not, until this paragraph that starts with, he drove his pickup to the parking lot of her apartments, I wasn't under the impression that he had been driving. Yes, it was after work. Certainly the work day had concluded. I got that. I'm curious what the characteristics could be thrown in. Like, as he's driving, does he have a cigarette going? tucked between two fingers, tapping a windowsill of the truck as he's driving down the street. As he flip off another driver who really didn't do anything, just because he's letting off steam. There's no real need to edit, per se. This already speaks well enough for itself. I'm just thinking of the additional characterizations that could tell more of a story of, well, of the way his character actually is. Hey, babe, what you doing hanging out here? Let's say we go back to your place and order some takeout and have a little fun. He leered as he walked up to her. She looked up without a smile, her face deadly serious. This was not the response he was looking for. Seeing his evening plans slipping away, he began feeling pissed again. What's that look for? Why don't you give me that look? He growled out in frustration. Well, let me try growling. What's that look for? Why don't you give me that look? Tom, we have to talk, was all Sunny said. Oh, I forgot to hit refresh. Hold on a second. Yeah, now the now is italicized. We're talking now, Tom snarled. Fine, we'll talk here then, sighed Sunny as he saw this was already going sideways. Might as well get this over with, she thought. She crossed her arms over her chest and looked straight at him. After a pause of several seconds, she gave him the news. Tom, I'm pregnant. He paused in shock. And you think it's mine? He blurted out. Just another asshole move on his part. Now it was Sunny's turn to be shocked, then angry. She stomped up to his face and hissed. What the hell are you implying, Tom? Of course he's yours. You think I've ever been with someone else? I told you, you were my first. I'd never done that with anyone before you, and I sure as hell never wanted to do it again with someone else. Why the fuck would you even say that? She demanded. Tom's gut clenched as he realized where this was going. He shoved her back. You bitch. You absolute fucking bitch. I told you I was not ready for any kind of relationship. And now you spring this on me? You're trying to trap me into marrying you, aren't you? You conniving little cunt. Why are you even telling me this? He raised at her. I have to give kudos. You do not shy away from the language. The guy speaks exactly as he should, being the complete piece of shit that he is. And you give him the dialogue that fleshes that out very, very well. There are authors that become very afraid to use certain language because it can be offensive, but really that's the point. It's intended to be offensive. The guy is meant to be offensive. It doesn't say anything about the author. It's supposed to speak about the character, and that here, this is what it does. Sunny looked on in shock. You seriously think I did this on purpose to trap you into marrying me? You seriously fucking think I'd want to be married to a raging piece of crap like you? Tom shot back. So what then? You want me to pay for it? Fine, fuck you. Come on. He grabbed her. He grabbed her roughly by the arm, then dragged her back towards his truck. They were in the middle of the parking lot before she finally managed to rip her arm from his bruising grasp. Ooh, bruising grasp. It's intense. I do not want an abortion, you prick. I'm keeping my baby. Fuck you if you think I'm not, she raged. I fucking knew it. You are trying to trap me, you stupid bitch. He spun on her, then knocked her down to the ground, landing on her straddled legs. What? She tried to push herself back up, but he pushed her back down and held her there. He leaned down into her face as she struggled. Landing on her... Oh, he straddled her legs. I read that wrong. I'm stupid. Landing on her, he straddled her legs. Okay, so now we have the proper visual of how they're arranged here now in the parking lot. That's quite something, too. To be an abusive asshole and do it in a public setting. I told you, I am not ready for a relationship with you. Well then, why did you start fucking her? Fine then. You don't want an abortion? No problem. I'll take care of it for you instead. I promise it'll be quick and painful. He pulled his fist back and swung down hard, his right arm slamming into the side of her abdomen. She gasped out in shock and pain. Well, you don't need to know much more about Tom than that, do you? From a nearby balcony, a neighbor watched in shock and dismay. She saw her friend struck as she struggled against her attacker, then get savagely beaten. Recovering her senses, she raced into her apartment to call for help for her friend. I am a little startled that she watched her friend get savagely beaten and then went to make the call. Not that the police necessarily would have arrived in time to intervene before it was very severe, but still, wow. Tom saw her shock and pain, and it triggered even more anger. He swung down into her again and again, raining blows down on her abdomen as she punched and flailed back up at him, bucking under him as she struggled to get him off her. Another neighbor saw a man beating a woman. He sprinted towards them, catching the young man in a diving tackle while pulling him off the distressed woman. He slammed the man's face into the asphalt and sat on him hard. "What the fuck do you think you're doing? Are you trying to kill her?" The man screamed. I have no idea why I just gave that a southern twang, but I don't regret it. Tom screamed back in frustration. "I fucking ought to. Conniving bitch can't just get a fucking abortion." The man held Tom down firmly, hopelessly outclassed in strength and experience that no amount of rage would ever overcome. Sunny rolled over. She crawled her way up to the standing. She crawled her way up to standing, holding her abdomen. She ignored the blood trickling from her nose and mouth. I was just about to offer some comment on that. I hadn't really heard anything about blood, but here we go. She staggered toward her now very much ex-boyfriend, hate filling her eyes. Honey, he should have been an ex a long time ago. But that's not to say that I blame you for the shit that he just pulled. That's entirely on him. She only took 2 steps before she seized up, falling to her knees. Blood ran down her legs as she dropped back down on the asphalt, barely holding herself, sitting as she leaned forward on her arms. Her hands clenched in rage on the rough driveway. She looked straight into her ex's eyes as she gasped out in pain and rage, "What have you done?" The question rode through the veil of Tom's rage. Blinking, Tom stopped squirming under the man, realizing what he was seeing. "Oh my God," he said quietly in horror at what he'd just done. I did not get the impression that this is a guy who could feel any horror over his own actions. So that's impressive. The sister soul's joy was interrupted by a shock of fear from the living cradle. They could sense their mother's fear, her panic, and her anger. They heard loud voices from outside their cradle. There was shouting and violent bumping. Suddenly a sharp jab brutally breached her little wife's connection from the cradle. Sister, where are you going? Sister, don't leave me." She heard her kindred soul cry out as her essence dimmed them, then faded completely. She was outside of her cradle now, looking down on her mother, crying. Blood flowed out from her as she wailed in despair. A distraught man was being held on the ground nearby. Even with his face pressed into the ground, he was crying and calling out, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll never hit you again. I promise. I am so sorry." "Goodbye, sweet sister," the little lost soul cried silently as she faded away again. And let me just say, Sunny, the character here in the story, don't go back to him. Just don't. You are worth 1,000 of this guy. You can do a lot better. He don't deserve you. Sirens filled the air as 2 cruisers raced into the parking lot. Seeing the young woman down on the ground and the man subdued before her, they ran over to them. One officer comforted Sunny while the other took custody of the now extremely subdued young man, then listened to the older man's report of what happened. On seeing Sunny's brutalized state, the officer with her called in a request for paramedics and an ambulance. Sunny's neighbors gathered around to support her, offering what comfort they could. Others thanked the older man for subduing her attacker. "I'm the one that called it in," stated the woman, who had run from her balcony as she gently rubbed Sunny's shoulder in support. "I saw it happen, and I can corroborate everything that that older man said. This man senselessly attacked Sunny and then started beating her. It was horrible." Several of the surrounding apartment residents called out in agreement. The officer took their names and numbers for possible further questions. So this is not a Kitty Genovese story, so that's good. The sound of sirens approached again. This time an ambulance and paramedic unit rolled together into the now quite crowded parking lot as the concerned residents parted to let them through. The units parked next to the two patrol cars. Four medics emerged from their vehicles, then gathered behind the ambulance to pull a gurney from the back. They gathered up their supplies and rolled over to Sunny, where she was still sitting on the asphalt. One of the EMTs questioned Sunny as they stepped up next to her. "Are you Miss Serenity, ma'am?" He knelt down next to her as she nodded. "That's me," she confirmed as he knelt. "Please just call me Sunny." Miss Serenity, that's her first name. I feel like you would say Miss Parker, but sure, why not, Miss Serenity? But it serves to give her that avenue to please just call me Sunny much better. But I guess she could do that for Miss Parker, too. It doesn't matter. Just a very, very minor nitpick on my part. He smiled and reached out to her, took her hands gently into his own, then nodded to the officer with her. The officer smiled and nodded back, backing off to let them work. Returning his smile and nod, the EMT turned back to Sunny. "We're here to help, Sunny. You look to be in a bad way. Can you briefly describe what happened?" My now ex-boyfriend decided I wasn't going to have his baby, then tried to beat her out of me, she stated. She looked down sadly at the blood slowly leached out from beneath her onto the asphalt. "I'm afraid he might have succeeded." "Only half." "We don't know that, ma'am. Let's get you up and off this asphalt and onto our gurney. We're going to take you to Canalon General Hospital where they can check you over. Don't you give up hope yet, Sonny," he added, remembering she had asked him to use her name. Yeah. Nice sensitive fella, too. I wonder if a female officer would have added or EMT, would have added a whole different kind of tone to this scene. I mean, it's really great as it is. Nothing really, I'm not saying anything has to change or should. Just curiosity is all. Sunny nodded mutely as they gently helped her up onto the gurney. They raised the head for her, then strapped her in, rolling her over to the ambulance. They loaded her into the back. The EMT who had spoken with her entered with her, while the rest entered their vehicles and flipped on their gumballs, preparing to leave. The neighbors parted again, allowing them to exit. The ambulance pulled out onto the street, followed by the paramedics. They both turned on their sirens as they pulled through the Canalon traffic. Inside, the EMT placed sensors on Sunny to monitor her pulse, blood oxygen, and EKG, while he asked her more detailed questions about what had transpired and how she was feeling. Sunny answered, feeling completely detached and depressed. He relayed all the information over the emergency radio to the hospital, which included her name, age, approximate size, and birth date. They acknowledged in response as he reported that they were about 5 minutes out. "Don't worry, Sonny. The obstetrics team at Canalon General are some of the best in the state. You'll be in good hands," he smiled. "It's not me I'm worried about," Sonny responded, looking up into his eyes. "It's her." She looked down at her blood-ruined short skirt. "You are a wonderful and caring person, Sonny. Keep your hope up." Should that say hopes? "I'm hopeful everything will work out," comforted the EMT. Sonny looked up into his eyes and finally smiled. "Me too." She nodded as hope finally reached her heart. She held his hands tightly. "Me too. Man, having just been carted away in an ambulance myself, that was quite an experience. It's good to note that this is a fairly accurate depiction of how that goes. They arrived at Canalon General. The 4 EMTs worked together to lift her gurney from the ambulance, then roll her into the busy ER. They rolled up to the triage station where they gave her name and birth date again. Then a few moments later were directed to a private room towards the back of the ER. A staff nurse joined them, introducing herself to Sonny as she led them to the room. And if you're thinking that was awful damn fast to get a private room at an ER, That's about as fast as I got mine on Friday too. So it's believable. Hello, Sonny. I'm Jillian Hart McGinnis, and everyone calls me Red Heart. Love it. I'll be taking care of you while we sort out your care and bring in our obstetrics team. I'll have some questions for you and some forms for you to sign while we get you settled and get your care started. They entered the small, now crowded room as Red Heart continued. First, let's get you off of this gurney and onto our bed. You'll be more comfortable, and we can get these guys back out there helping others. She smiled and winked at the EMTs as they transferred Sonny carefully over onto the examination bed. Best lighten up with that flirting. Red, some of us might be taken. Grinned the EMT who was with Sonny in the back of the ambulance. Well, that lightens the mood, doesn't it? He winked at Sonny while he finished up the paperwork transferring Sonny's care over to the ER. The rest of the crew finished packing up the gurney, then prepared to leave. Ha! Grinned Red Heart. Since when does Cadillacs Junior Chief have time for anything but work? She teased as she finished up placing the leads on Sonny, then watched the readouts verifying everything was working. Maybe I just hadn't found the right girl, he quipped, giving Sonny another grin and a wink as he handed Red the completed paperwork. Sonny blushed from his attention. Oh! Not really understanding the quip. Red Heart laughed and smiled. Red Heart grinned at Sonny as the EMTs left laughing together. They waved to Sonny and Red Heart as they rolled the gurney back out of the ER. Sonny, let me just roll back here a minute. She didn't really understand the quip, and that's really rather sad. That is just another indictment on her romantic life, on that ex so-called boyfriend of hers. You know, that she doesn't understand what like positivity and affection is meant to feel like and how it is. Wow. Sonny turned to Red Heart as they left. Do you all flirt and joke so much with each other? She asked, still pleasantly surprised by their banter. Oh, absolutely, Red Heart grinned. See how you're smiling now? It takes your mind off of the unpleasantness. It's fun for us and entertaining for you. And we all get to forget about what we've seen, heard, and experienced for a moment so we can just enjoy the moment of life we have before us. Because, yeah, they seriously see some shit in their job. Oof. Red Heart leaned into Sonny. And between you and me, I think your little junior chief likes you. She whispered into Sonny's ear, going, what? Exclaimed Sonny, pulling back in surprise to stare at Red Heart in disbelief. Red Heart grinned. Don't look so surprised. Girl, it happens. She grinned mischievously. Sometimes the ones we care for are the ones we care for. If you get my drift. She smiled at Sonny. I keep putting a southern twang on everything. And me, I'm a New Yorker. I don't get it. Look at Red Heart in surprise. Looking at Red Heart in surprise, she turned back to look at the door he'd just left through, her broken heart wondering. So she got served a nice big scoop of hope in those moments. That's very nice writing. I just like how there was sufficient positive to offset the negative, that it wasn't so completely dark and hopeless as to be dreary reading. Yeah, it was tragic for sure, and there were certain parts that definitely hurt, but it is well balanced. After Red Heart helped her clean up, saving everything to give to the lab and doctors, the ultrasound technician had come, finishing her work, then gone. She smiled and talked with Sonny the entire time, then promised the doctor on call with the obstetrics team would have her results be there shortly. I am pretty amazed that Red Heart could just stay there the whole time. Your nurses rarely got downtime. Sonny waited alone in the room, sitting up in the bed. She still held on to her hope just as the junior chief encouraged her. In her memory, she saw his face as he held her hands, smiling at her in encouragement. She smiled at the memory. Her door opened as the young doctor walked in. She smiled encouragingly at Sonny while she shut the door behind her. Good evening, Sonny. I'm Dr. Birthright. What a great name. I do love how you get to play around with these MLP, EQG names to make them so thematically appropriate for profession or other place in life. It's just great. I'm not really great at selecting them, but oh my God, this author is terrific at it. Good evening, Sonny. I'm Dr. Birthright. I'm with the obstetrics team here at Canterlot General. The doctor stated as she sat on a stool next to the bed facing Sonny. I have some good news and some bad news. If you're prepared to hear it, I'd like to share it with you. She continued. Sonny nodded in encouragement, so she began. Dr. Birthright looked into her eyes, smiling. The good news first. You are still pregnant. There is a baby growing and forming still in your womb despite what you went through. Sonny nodded, crying happily at the news and feeling encouraged. Dr. Birthright continued. There is some bad news. Do you want to hear that now too? She asked. Sonny nodded in confirmation, so Dr. Birthright continued. The bad news is you did lose a life. You had twins. One of the twins spontaneously aborted, and that's why you were covered with blood. Your body was passing her remains from your womb to protect the other twin, she explained. I don't personally have any idea how physiologically or biologically accurate any of that is. I have no reason to think that it's not, but it's interesting, she explained. There was nothing spontaneous about it, Sonny hissed, calming. Sonny looked at the doctor. Do you have her remains? I'd like to see her off properly. She deserves that at least. That's an unusual request, but sure. If it will bring you peace, we can do that. We've gathered her tiny remains. Just let us know what funeral facilities you pick, then we will have her remains delivered to their care. For obvious health reasons, we can't just release her remains to you, explained Dr. Birthright. I understand, Sonny nodded. Dr. Birthright gave her a gentle hug as Sonny cried in her grief. Though through her tears, Sonny still smiled. That is a confusing sentence for me. Happy that even in her grievous loss, Harmony had seen fit to leave her a gentle gift, a life still growing within her to love and raise. Sonny smiled through her tears. She was going to be a mother. From the sounds of it, a damn good one. Let's see, though through her tears, Sonny still smiled. Maybe that second though between tears and Sonny, that doesn't have to be there, I don't think. Junior Fire Chief Harlan Everfree Shimmer. I love it. It's wonderful. I like the Everfree is thrown on in there. We got the surname ready for sunset coming up. Smiled as he parked in the guest parking of the apartment he had visited just 2 days before. He had called Nurse Redheart to ask how a certain someone was doing and was informed by his friend archly in no uncertain terms. She had no idea who he was talking about and couldn't say anything as she did about anyone who went home or not, as that would certainly be a violation of HIPAA. Yeah. Getting into specifics, yes. Saying she's okay. I don't think that one's a violation in particular, but who knows, it might be. Thanking her. I know the doctors can be pretty uppity about sharing anything without first being authorized to do so. And they're right to be uppity. It's great that kind of information is so well protected. Thanking her for her time and apologizing for any misunderstanding, he hung up, determined to head over to her apartment after his shift. For all her teasing, Redheart was a true friend. Asking a few passing neighbors for Sonny's apartment, several recognized him, even out of uniform, and happily gave him directions. And some of them were gleefully cackling as they watched him leave, their inner matchmaker abundantly satisfied. He took the steps up to her landing and knocked on her door. He channeled his inner Sam Elliott. Ooh, what a good inner voice to have, man. Readying himself when she answered. Sonny opened the door, crying her eyes, wanting to express, Chief! Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? She gasped out, blushing and smiling. Oh, Chief, yeah. He quipped in his best drawl. Still just Junior Chief. Miss Sonny Parker. I'm here with a few follow-on questions. You have a moment? He asked her, smiling. By the way, I doubt my Sam Elliott is going all that well, but it is one hell of an inner voice to have. Her face fell a bit in hearing that. She opened the door wider to fully greet him, dressed in sweats, barefoot on the carpet inside, with her messy red hair pulled back in a scrunchie. In his eyes, though, she appeared stunningly beautiful. He smiled, still playing it straight. Thank you, Sonny. This won't take any longer than I got the... Thank you, Sonny. This won't take any longer than you want. I was concerned after seeing you before. As a representative of the Gainalon Fire and Rescue, I wanted to be certain you were doing okay and recovering. He smiled kindly. We're a small community here, so we all feel it important to look after our own, he continued. My first question is, how are you doing? And the follow-on, is there anything we can do to improve your situation? I don't know why it came out like that, but oh well. Sonny grimaced mumbling under. It feels like some punctuation is needed here, but okay. So I'm going to read it the way that feels better paced to me. Sonny grimaced, mumbling under her breath as she stood back. Of course you're here as a chief. Why would I have hoped otherwise? She grumped quietly as stepped back. You're missing I think a pronoun here? Then she smiled up at him, continuing in her normal conversational tone. Would you like to come in? Perhaps take a seat while we discuss your questions and concerns? Much obliged, Miss Parker. And sorry, what was that first part? I don't think I could rightly make it out. Junior Chief Shimmer smiled as he stepped inside her door. He heard her full well. There was nothing wrong with his hearing. Wow. He just wanted to see what she'd say. Nothing. It was nothing. I was just talking to myself. Never mind. Sonny said quickly, shutting the door, then quickly leading him over to the couch. Take a seat, please, she offered, pointing out the couch. He took his seat on the far side, looking up to find her still standing before him, arms crossed and looking awkward. Aren't you going to take a seat too, Miss Parker? He asked expectantly as he looked up at her. She blushed profusely, holding herself tighter as she replied in a slightly higher voice. No, that's okay. I can just stand here. This isn't going to take long, right? There's not really anywhere to sit anyway. She replied as she grew even more flustered. Why, Miss Parker, there's a perfectly useful spot right there, he replied, patting the couch next to him. I promise, I don't even bite. He gave her his most charming smile. Would you like anything to eat? Or, drink, I mean? She called out, turning quickly towards her kitchenette on the other side of the room. It's a tiny little apartment, okay. As she turned to leave hurriedly, Junior Chief Shimmer's grin returned in full force. Sweet Harmony, this woman is irresistibly adorable. He smiled to himself. Well, then you better never treat her any less than she deserves to be treated. He resumed his normal rakish... Oh, what a lovely word. I don't see it often enough. Rakish grin before she turned back around. She stood before the small refrigerator. The fridge door opened as she looked inside. We have milk, orange juice, and water, she called out over her shoulder. Water sounds fine. Miss Parker, and were you serious about something to eat? I am feeling a mite bit peckish, he responded cordially. Surprised, Sonny stood straight up and spun to face him. Are you serious? She asked in shock. As a serene sunrise, he responded smoothly. Oh, I'll say, very smooth. She was taken aback. Okay. She spun back around, looking into the fridge again. There's some leftover pizza from last night. Is that okay? She asked. That sounds fine. Is there enough for both of us? I'd hate to eat alone, he drawled. She checked, pulling the pizza box out, then lifting the lid. Oh yeah, I only ate 2 slices last night. More than enough left for both of us, she answered unthinkingly. She placed the box in the microwave for a minute to warm it up. That must be like a personal pan pizza kind of thing. Suddenly she stood back up as what she was doing hit her. She turned back to face him as the pizza warmed. What were your other questions, she asked hurriedly. Just one. Hardly ever free Shimmer smiled as she stared into her guarded eyes. Do you like me? Sonny's mouth fell open in shock. How long did you say you were staying? She managed to sputter. For the rest of your life, if you'll have me, smiled blithely. Serenity Sunrise Parker's heart melted instantly and completely. That was so cool. Alright, let me just give you your life. Oh, what the hell? How in God's name does this have any dislikes at all? Let me just comment on the like to dislike ratio, because I just don't get how you'd have 3 dislikes. First of all, this quickly. Second of all, at all. Because this is good writing. This is well paced. This isn't too wordy. It was comfortable and fun to read. I was getting emotional at all the right parts. It was really hitting every note just right. with very few like little minor errors here and there, nothing significant. I didn't at any point feel that I had to pause or rage about anything. I got no frustration out of this. It was a good, comfortable read, even for having such a dark theme and content, and a tragic bent to it. Which I know we're going to follow up on that. I know because I understand the story concept, because it was explained to me by the author themselves. But like, how did you come through reading this? Maybe you thought that the flirting and the shipping here was at breakneck pace. Maybe he comes off a little too smug in the end there. Maybe a little full of himself or something. It's he. If you'll have me entirely respect her boundaries, he ain't trying to push his way in. He's trying to smoothly glide into her life, And he was good, but it is. I can't really figure out or fathom a reason why there should be any downvotes on this story. I really don't get that. Maybe there is something in the other chapters, but I have to say here and now that I doubt it very much. So, back to just regular commentary on the story. Very good stuff. Really, as I said, well-paced. It's not too wordy anywhere. I am not reading massive, chunky paragraphs anywhere. This might be one of the biggest in the story. Dialogue is fairly organic. It feels pretty good. I will say, back up here to where we were first really introduced to Tom. Here, there could have been, and it's not a flaw, like not really. There's no, this chapter doesn't lose anything for lacking what I'm about to suggest, but there could have been a little more atmosphere for Tom, just a little more to suggest. Did he drink? Did he smoke? Did he have something else in his system? Yeah, we got that he's ragey and that he doesn't ever take responsibility, that he blames everybody else for his shortcomings and his embarrassments or whatever. That's well done. But yeah. It's really very well done. I have to say, I love how this was done and how this came out. This was a good read. It wasn't even too long of a chapter, and the author was saying that they are accustomed to writing something like 20 to 30 or 50 page chapters, and I caution you, with the internet's tendency to have brief attention spans, I caution you against writing excessively long chapters. This is not a bad length. It could go a little longer, and as long as the storytelling like this remains fresh and entertaining and draws you in like this does, I guess it really doesn't matter how long it goes, but I just really, well done. What a great job this was. I loved reading it. I had fun. I'm glad that this got to be the inaugural reading on this new microphone too. And I hope this microphone worked good and that this was all actually recorded. I'm going to get this edited and uploaded just as quickly as I can.